Yeah, when you're ready. No.
Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu rasulillah. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man sara sabilihi ila yawmiddin amma ba'd. So as we continue discussing the book Al-Bukhari, the book Al-Muqtasa Sahih Bukhari by Az-Zabidi rahimahullah, and we'll be continuing discussing Kitab al-Salat, and we'll pick up from the hadith that we had covered last. We're discussing a hadith that relates to the masjid. So the author rahimahullah mentions certain hadith that relates to the masjid. So of the hadith that we have discussed is regarding an-nawm ar-rajul fil masjid. So we discussed the hadith of men sleeping inside of the masjid and the ahkam that can be taken from that hadith and fawaid. So we'll go to the chapter that follows and discusses the hadith and the benefits that can be taken bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Tafaddal.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Qala al-mu'allif rahimahullah. Chapter 40. If one entered a mosque, one should pray 2 raka'ah before sitting. Hadith number 279, narrated by Abu Qatada As-Sulami radiyallahu anhu. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, if any one of you enters a mosque, he should pray 2 raka'ah before sitting.
Nam Sallallahu rahimahullah, he mentioned regarding this bab, which is continuing regarding matters pertaining to salat, where he mentioned إِذَا دَخْلَ الْمَسْجِدِ فَلْيَرْكَعْ رَكْعَتَيْنِ. So he mentioned, as for the heading, that if one enters the masjid, then one should pray rak'atayn, that one should pray rak'atayn. So he mentioned the hadith of Abi Qatada radhiyallahu as-Sulami, that the Prophet ﷺ, the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, إِذَا دَخْلَ أَحْدُكُمَ الْمَسْجِدِ, if any of you were to enter the masjid, فَلْيَرْكَعْ رَكْعَتَيْنِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَجْلِسْ. So this is the hadith that we mentioned here regarding of those things that relates to the ahkam of the masjid, that if one was to enter the masjid, then before one sits, then one should pray rak'atayn. So one should pray rak'atayn. So he mentioned regarding, so you abir, so he can somewhat mention in relation to salat by using the word rak'atayn. Or he mentioned regarding a rak'ah. So rak'ah being one of the acts of the salat. So he mentioned regarding the salat by stating one of the act of the salat in reference to the act of salat itself. So he mentions, so the hadith here is to discuss that what is to be done upon entering the masjid. Is it for the person who wishes to sit? Is it upon that person that they should pray rak'atayn? So from the hadith that we mentioned here, from what is dhahir, what is apparent from the hadith, that is something which is mentioned, فَلْيَرْكَعْ, which is fi'l al-amr, rak'atayn qabla an yajlis, that one should sit or one should pray rak'atayn before one sits in the masjid. So from this, you have that discussion regarding the hadith. It shows that the permissibility for the one who enters the masjid before they sit, that they should pray rak'atayn. So the one who enters the masjid and wish to sit, then what is he should pray rak'atayn. And this applied, this ruling, it applies both for male and female. So if a man or a woman enter the masjid and they wish to sit, then they should offer these 2 rak'atayn. There's a khilaf I will discuss between this regarding this hadith. You have a lengthy discussion regarding this particular hadith, regarding this hadith or this act of rak'atayn before sitting is this act is referred to as at-tahiyyat al-masjid. So the act of tahiyyat al-masjid, which is referred to as the salat of the greeting of the masjid. So when the salat is to be offered, and first regarding what's the ruling regarding this salat. So what's the ruling regarding this particular salat? So it mentioned, have been stated by some of the ulama regarding this particular matter. So regarding concerning the term that is used, the Prophet ﷺ, he referred to as concerning فَلْيَرْكَعْ rak'atayn qabla an yajlis, that you should pray rak'atayn before you sit. So the general term that is used, or the term that is used for this salat, is referred to as tahiyyatul masjid. So referred to as tahiyyatul masjid, that's what is referred to as. Then the ulama mentioned that as for this term, tahiyyatul masjid is not a term that the Prophet ﷺ that he actually used from any authentic hadith. So it become a terminology that is used, or this terminology or what is this salat is referred to as such by the ulama, but not the Prophet ﷺ who gave this act that name of tahiyyatul masjid, even though there's a hadith that mention it. There's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith of Abi Dharr anhu قال دخلت المسجد, that he mentioned, I enter the masjid, فإذا رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام جالس وحده, where the Prophet ﷺ was sitting by himself. قال يا أبي ذر, inna al-masjid tayyat. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he said to Abi Dhar, Ya Aba Dhar, inna lil masjid, that indeed for the masjid tayyat, that's a greetings. Wa in tayyatuhu rakatain, and that is tayyat is rakatain. Qum faraka'uma, then you should stand and pray both of those two rakat. Qala fakumtu faraka'tuhuma, that I mentioned that I stand and I pray both. Al hadith, and that hadith in the Ibn Hibban, that hadith in the Ibn Hibban. We said about Ibn Hibban before, that particular book, Ibn Hibban. Ibn Hibban is a collector of hadith. What's so particular about Ibn Hibban? So Ibn Hibban, of those who kind of somewhat that is collection of hadith, it's supposed to mirror after that of Bukhari and Muslim, where a hadith that they miss, that is upon their condition that he have gathered. So this hadith, according to Ibn Hibban, would be considered to be Sahih. But the reality they mention is hadith is daif jiddan. This hadith is considered to be daif jiddan. Based upon you find a certain rating in the hadith that they are criticized heavily. And amongst them, Ibrahim ibn Isham ibn Yahya Ghassani al-Damashqi, where so he is considered to be matruk, so he's very weak amongst the ulama. So the Prophet Islam in this hadith kind of somewhat used this term concerning, as I mentioned, Ya Aba Dhar, inna lil masjid, that indeed in the masjid tayyah, that as a greeting. So that would be kind of somewhat so said that based upon because this hadith is daif, there was that there is nothing that has gone back, nothing goes back to the Prophet Islam about naming tayyatul masjid as such, as the hadith that kind of somewhat mention of this, it is considered to be weak, very weak, not even weak, it was very weak. So the next matter regarding the aqwal of the ulama regarding tayyatul masjid. If I want to enter the masjid, what should be done? If one enter the masjid, then what should be done? So there's a khilaf between the ulama on this matter, that you'll find that there's an ijma, as mentioned by some of them, and Nawawi and the likes, that an ijma between the ulama, that it is something which is mashru'ah, it is something which is permissible and allowed for a person to pray tayyat al-masjid upon entering the masjid. Then the difference, so they mention it is something which is allowed and permissible. Then the next matter they discuss, that was the actual specific ruling on this matter, that Jumhur of the ulama amongst the Hanafiya, Shafi'iyya, Malikiyya and the Hanabila take the position that it is something which is, with Jumhur of the ulama, it is sunnah mu'akkada. So tahiyatul masjid, it is sunnah or sunnah mu'akkada, that when a person enters the masjid, he should pray these rakatain before he sits. So that's the call of Jumhur of the ulama. And they kind of somewhat, Jumhur of the ulama, they have come to this position where the Prophet they mentioned that the compulsory salat, they are only 5. So any other salat, then they are considered to be sunnah. So the compulsory salat is the 5 daily salat. Anything outside this, they are considered to be sunnah. So that's concerning Jumhur of the ulama. Then you find that the Zahiriyya and those who agree with them, that they take the position that tayyatul masjid, it is something which is wajib. So the Zahiriyya, that they take the position that based upon the hadith, that which is what's the apparent meaning of the hadith, that what can be extracted from the hadith, that praying this rakatain before one sit, it is wajib. As the Prophet has mentioned, فَلْيَرْكَ رَكَاتَيْن قَبْلَ أَنْ يَجْلِسْ, based upon this hadith and hadith of this meaning that are similar. So that's that based upon this, it shows it's something which is wajib, but it is wajib because of a reason. Just that it is wajib لِسَبَب. So it is considered to be wajib due to the circumstance or a reason, which is the reason is if the person enters the masjid, then it becomes wajib if he wishes to sit. So that's the position they take. And Ibn Taymin, even Shaykh Abdul Aziz al-Raji and others mention that the qawl of the Zahiriyya, it is a qawl which is strong. It's a very strong position that is taken by the Zahiriyya, even though you find some of others might say still align with the view of Jumhur of the ulama, with itself, it is sunnah mu'akkada, not wajib, but they will still acknowledge that the view of the Zahiriyya, it is very strong, based upon the apparent hadith. Then they mention that it is based upon a reason, which is if the person enters the masjid, then one should pray these rakatain before one sits. So the Zahiriyya, they take as somebody said that the mantuq of the hadith, which is the apparent meaning of the hadith. Nam, we said that al-mafhum, al-muwafaqa, as mentioned by ulama, where if you go according to the meaning of the hadith, it means that you are not allowed to sit in the masjid until you have prayed these rak'atayn. Nam. So that's concerning the view of the Zahiriyah. So they kind of somewhat that's concerning that matter. So that's concerning the view of the ulama on this matter regarding hukum tayyatul masjid. Then they kind of somewhat go into different matters regarding that meaning concerning tayyatul masjid and how it is performed. If a person wants to enter the masjid, for example, between after Salatul Maghrib and before Salatul Isha. So there is no salat that is to be prayed. Regarding so the person enter at that time, then the person before he sits and wait for Salatul Isha, then he should pray rak'atayn. Clear?
Is it between Asr and Maghrib or between Maghrib and Isha?
So if the person wants to enter the masjid, it's after Salatul Isha been prayed. The person arrived to the masjid and he arrived Salatul Isha, Salatul Maghrib are prayed and finish. But he is attending the masjid for Salatul Isha, but he's early. So in that case, the person, if he enters early, half an hour, 4 to 5 minutes, whatever time early, before he sits, then he would pray rak'atayn, tahiyatul masjid, and wait for Salatul Isha. So you have that scenario. So in that case, he's praying rak'atayn because he wants to sit and to wait for Salatul Isha. The next case, the person again enter for Salatul Isha. Upon entering the Salat, they are about to enter the masjid, they are about to start Salatul Isha. He's a minute on time. And the sufuf are being, the lines, the rows are being lined up, so he join. So in that case, the person, there is no tayyatul masjid for him, he prays Salatul Isha, and that's sufficient. Clear? So in that case, there's no need for him to pray rak'atayn, then join the congregation, the Jama'ah, and pray. Because that Salatul Isha is substitute for those rak'atayn. Clear? Yeah. So you have that case. So you have so the person will pray so that the person come in the masjid and he enter the masjid and so if he enter the masjid and he has prayed with the Jama'ah, then that will suffice for his tahiyatul masjid. He only pray if there's nothing to be prayed.
Do you mind if I ask another question?
Okay.
You have some people, it's a more of an observation question. You have some people when they pray their tahiyatul masjid and the iqamah is being established for
for the compulsory salat.
But they're still in still completing their tahiyatul masjid, even though maybe the Athari or one of these prayers have started. What's the rule in there?
Now, the person enter the masjid. Now, the Prophet mentioned, إذا أقام الأذان فلا صلاة إلا المكتوبة. أو إذا قامت الأذان أو كما قال عليه السلام لا صلاة إلا المكتوبة. That if the adhan has been called for the maktuba, for the compulsory salat, then a person should not be engaged in any salat except for the salat which is compulsory. So meaning, so the other discussion between the person is already involved in a salat. So the person, for example, he entered the masjid and the iqamah has been called. Now, there's no need for him to pray tahiyatul masjid.
About he's halfway through it.
I'm with you.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
So I said if the person enter the masjid and the iqamah is in the iqamah being called, then there's no need for that person to pray anything but wait and join them. With me on that. Then the next scenario, the next case, that a person entered the masjid, it was like 5 minutes before the iqamah, as an example, or a few minutes. So he went straight into tahiyatul masjid. With me? Then the iqamah is called while he's halfway or he's in his salah, hasn't completed. Then what should be done? Now, so the ulama mentioned a person, if he believes that, even though he's in the iqamah and he's in the salat, and he believes that he can somewhat either speed up and still end his salat before the imam make the takbir, then he should complete his salah. That's one view. Now, so the person should still continue, but he may somewhat try to move much more speedier or faster, so as to ensure that he is able to join the imam before the takbirah is made by the imam. And that's called taken by many. And of the other view concerning the person that if he believes that continuing with delay him, then he should end the salah. He should break his salat and go into, so for example, the person just started and just read the Surah Al-Fatiha, and his first rakah, and the iqamah is off and the imam getting everyone ready, then a person should break his salat and join them.
How does one, so according to the second, according to the second view, how does one break this salat? To make taslim halfway through or just quit straight like
You have a difference there. Those who mention a person that he give taslim, and those who mention that it is broken automatically. So taslim awla, just somewhat the safer route. The safer route, seeing that he start the salah and end it with taslim. The safer route. So the next matter they discussed between the ulama regarding concerning Tahiyatul Masjid as additional regarding that the time which is said to be the time which is makruh, the time they said that one should not pray after Salatul after Salatul Asr and the like. So the person enter the masjid early after Salatul Asr and he wants to pray Salatul Maghrib. So those times that are said to be the time that not to pray, is the person allowed to pray tahiyyat in the time that are said to be manhi'an, the time that is forbidden for the person to pray. So you have different timing. Of those who say it is wajib, the older person must pray. That he must pray, and because that salat is said to be min dhawat al-asbab, it's a salat based upon a reason. So the time that you are forbidden, it will get praying is given precedent because the person have a reason to pray. Those salat that are said to be forbidden to be prayed at those times that are said to be forbidden is nawafil mutlaq, just general nawafil salah. But salat that have a reason, dhawat al-asbab of the salawat, then they can be prayed in those times that are said to be forbidden. Clear? So that's concerning that matter. So if you say it is dhawat al-asbab, then we discuss a next matter regarding tahiyyat, that is it these rakatain, is it for if he wishes to sit? For example, a person has entered the masjid, you step into the masjid, you come to see someone, give them salam, take something from them, and then you go out. You're not intending to stay in the masjid, but you have entered the masjid. So is tahiyatul masjid for dukhul al-masjid, the fact that you have entered the masjid, then you have to pray it? Or is it because of yurid and yajlis, the person wished to sit? So you have the khilaf between the ulama. That I mentioned that, of those who mentioned that this tahiyatul masjid is for entering the masjid. And I mentioned that if the person said, إذا دخلت المسجد فلا يركع حتى لا يركع ركعتين قبل أن يجلس. So it says that he mentioned about before you should be said that in most scenario about the fact that you enter the masjid, that's a real reason why behind you have to pray, because you have entered the masjid. Not necessarily that you have to sit in the masjid or wish to sit before you have to pray tahiyatul masjid. Clear? So tahiyatul masjid, some of the ulama, is for entering the masjid whether you sit or not. Of those who mentioned, so the next view is based upon the hadith, that is based upon the person who chooses to sit. The person enters the masjid, as I said, he comes to see someone, he's there talking to him for a while, exchange of item, then a person decides to go. Or you just want to stand in a corner for a few minutes. Now, according to those who say the fact that you enter the masjid, then you are due to, then tahiyatul masjid is to be prayed on your behalf, to be prayed. But those who mention, based upon the hadith they mention, that is based upon the person choosing to sit. The person choosing to sit. So, question, the person enter the masjid and he's sitting on a chair, not the floor. The person enter the masjid and he sits on a chair, not on the floor. Does he pray Tahiyatul Masjid?
No.
Hey, because he's sitting. So he's sitting, so the rule applies to the person. The fact the person want to stay in the masjid and sit, and to sit, they want to by way of a chair, or by way of the person want to sit on the floor directly, then a person in that scenario, that they pray Tahiyatul Masjid. So see, there are other things that kind of somewhat, other masal that relates to this. The person was to leave the masjid. For example, he works in the masjid, caretaker, cleaner, imam, whoever, and they go in and out all the time. Several times they're in and out the masjid. That person who go in and out repeatedly, tikraran, miraran, does that person need to pray Tahiyatul Masjid every time he goes out, go into the courtyard, come back in, go in the backyard, but he have left the masjid, building itself, the physical building, and he's just outside, but still on the premises of the masjid, or just outside, on the sidewalk of the masjid? Does that person need to pray Tahiyyat every time he goes in and out? The person in the masjid, today is what, Jummah, he left, went outside to buy his lunch with me, and then he comes back in to sit in the masjid to eat his lunch. Does the person in that case scenario, does he need to pray Tahiyyatul Masjid before he sits to eat his lunch?
Is that a question, sir?
A rhetorical question, as they say. So I'm saying you understand the issue, though. It's just going to sound to put issue that. So you have those who mentioned that once is enough for a person who goes back and forth. Those who mentioned no, in all cases the person need to pray Tahiyatul Masjid. So you have those issues that is related to it. You have those issues that is related to. So you have even books that are dedicated to this discussion regarding discussing most of the masail that relates to Tahiyatul Masjid. So that's concerning some of those matters. Now, some of those matters. Any question before we move regarding that matter?
Person said from the internet, they said, okay, if you step out to grab something from your car, yeah, and you're just going to come back
Quickly.
shortly, now,
Hey.
you have to pray Tahiyatul Masjid.
I'm saying go back again to that. Anyway, that of those who mentioned, if the fact that the person have left the masjid, whether it's a short, some give with a short or a long period or distance, that a person should have to pray Tahiyatul Masjid every time that they re-enter the masjid. Of those who say that's not the case, with something with a short exit of the masjid, then they mention that's not the case. The person does not. So you have that difference between the ulama on that matter. So we said a lengthy discussion on most of those masail. So the person goes to his car, get a lunch, get just something outside. They see it as you have left the masjid. You have left the masjid. Aywa.
قال المؤلف رحمه الله, chapter 41, the construction of the Prophet's Masjid sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Hadith number 280, narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. In the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his mosque was built of abodes, its roof of the leaves of date palms and its pillars of the stems of date palms. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu did not alter it. Omar radiallahu anhu expanded it on the same pattern as it was in the lifetime of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam by using abodes, leaves of date palms, and changing the pillars into wooden ones. Uthman radiallahu anhu changed it by expanding it to a great extent and built its walls with engraved stones and lime, and made its pillars of engraved stones and its roof of teak wood. Hadith number.
That's it?
No.
Okay.
Hadith
No. That's the hadith. Okay, so they mentioned regarding concerning Bunyan al-Masjid. So they mentioned concerning al-Masjid in this context, they mean concerning the Prophet ﷺ Masjid. So Masjid al-Medina, that's a masjid that is intended, as the hadith also clarifies. So they mentioned concerning the Prophet ﷺ Masjid regarding how it was built. and how initiate was, and then what happened after the Prophet ﷺ regarding this masjid. But also regarding concerning that of the ahkam that applied to the Prophet ﷺ masjid in some cases apply to other masjids, other masajid. So they mentioned the hadith of Abdullah bin Omar anhuma, where the Prophet they mentioned regarding that, the Prophet ﷺ regarding that he built his masjid in a simplified way. So his masjid will be concerned in a simple way regarding concerning the roof of jarid, that palm tree branches leaf to use as the roof kind of somewhat to shelter a roof. Then also concerning that the umad, which concerning that they mention that the masjid columns that of khashab. So that's concerned that the masjid al-Islam was of such. So it's not in a very modest masjid that the Prophet ﷺ that he had. So nothing, as I said, nothing fancy. And they used what was available regarding the type of building material that was ordinary use then. So use of those building material that was ordinary use then. So a very simple masjid. A very simple masjid which is provide a roof to shelter, and also because it's a building they need columns to help to keep it up and firm. Then I mentioned فَلَمْ يَزِدْ فِيهِ أَبُو بَكْرٍ. So after the Prophet ﷺ, he died, then regarding the masjid as how it was built by the Prophet ﷺ, that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he did not change anything, it remained. But also Abu Bakr, that his khilafah only lasts a few years, so a very short time, 2 years or beneath just 2 years. So his khilafah lasted a short period. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was more involved regarding matters relating to the people who were somewhat trying to those people make a ridda from Islam. So he was busy regarding concerning with that challenge. So as for the masjid, it remained as it was. Then I mentioned فَزَادَ فِي عُمَرٍ, the time of Omar that he somewhat have expanded the masjid. So that time, at the time of Omar, that has also that lasts for many years regarding his khilafah, and also the ummah can start to the ummah the Muslim nation start to spread and grow in number. So Umar al-Khattab that also increased the masjid, or the size of the masjid, he expanded the size of the size of the masjid. So he showed the permissibility. So he said Abu Bakr left that as is. Then Umar, he expanded the masjid. So he showed the permissibility of a masjid based upon even with the Prophet Islam masjid, the permissibility of a masjid being expanded based upon needs. Based upon the need. So it showed the permissibility of expanding the masjid based upon the need of the people. So and where the people in the masjid, that they can be in an environment, meaning the masjid, that it is comfortable and it can suit the number of people that are present to use the masjid. So it showed that so Omar, he made a decision and he did so. And also he did so that we can say that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did not touch the masjid, but Omar did, based upon need. And also you find that many of the companions were present at the time of Omar. You find many of the people of the Sahaba were present, so it shows that it was allowed, and they did so. Shows a masjid that if it have outgrown its size, that those in authority, those in charge of the masjid, that they can expand the masjid so as to accommodate for the congregation. Then it mentioned that, and also the type of material that was being used then somewhat changed. Now, so it showed the Prophet Masjid that that certain changes had occurred regarding the building material that was being used. So they mentioned al-laban, wal-jarid. So they mentioned that and turn al-khashab. Then they mentioned that Uthman ibn Affan, then also he came and he expanded the masjid even further. So Uthman ibn Affan even expanded the masjid even in a greater size than of those who came before. So also overall it shows regarding that the permissibility of expanding a masjid, adding to the masjid based upon the need of the community and the congregation. So this is something which is allowed. It shows regarding also the khulafa and also the type of material that was used was also being changed as the size grew, and also material started to change. Also it shows from the hadith that regarding concerning that of those who are who in charge of the masjid, regarding the governance of the masjid, kind of somewhat to try to ensure that the masjid is kept in a state or condition that is that is in a suitable condition and not left to, as I said, to be run down. So for them to keep the masjid in a suitable condition, where the masjid it is spacious enough to hold the congregation. Also for them to see if the congregation is growing, that you have space so the people can fit inside the masjid as much as possible. So to ensure that that the people can fit inside the masjid. So for those who are in charge to be looking at these things regarding the masjid. So as the people run the masjid, to be looking concerning what are the things that can be improved and be bettered so as to accommodate the congregation. That's a part of their duty and responsibility. So it shows regarding concerning upkeepment of the masjid. It's something that attention to be given to this, that the masjid in a suitable condition. Also it shows regarding concerning the hadith that matters concerning the masjid is said to be a form of act of ibadah or place of ibadah. But in the masjid, one doesn't have to restrict oneself to the masjid looking of the Prophet Islam masjid, that it was built in a certain way of that time, palm leaf, khashab from but today so one can put things into Saint Uthman and the like. Things now start to be hijarat, into put the masjid into stone. So to make the masjid into a sturdy enough building based upon the material that's available in different times. So that's concerning of those things that relates to the masjid that is mentioned here. And also it shows regarding that so that's concerning of the masjid. So it shows the permissibility of a masjid being expanded according to needs. A masjid being expanded according to needs. Also the ulama mentioned regarding this matter that also showed the Prophet ﷺ masjid is somewhat initially, and those early days of the Salaf, that the masjid was somewhat modest. A modest masjid, simple, not overly decorative. Not overly decorative. So it's not of the thing you find that the masajid that of recent time, they'll find masjid are very overly decorative. Overly decorative. So it's going to somewhat to minimize those things and try to to memorize regarding the level of decoration within the masjid. So to minimize those things and regarding concern the price tab or the prices for masajid now is in some cases Allah mustan is way over the top. It's way over the top. So as I said that this does not undermine that the masjid be a place that was said that should be clean, tidy, smelling good, and also said of a acceptable standard, not a run-down standard where everything is breaking up. We're not talking about that. Clear? So we're not saying the masjid should be left in that condition. So as thing needs to be repaired, the place needs to be the masjid painted, if it needs to be painted every few years to keep the masjid set to a good standard, where the Muslims feel comfortable inside the masjid. But it doesn't have to mean the person have to spend unnecessary amount to uphold the masjid. So that's concerning of those things that they mention regarding this particular matter. So the Prophet's masjid was simple, not for the masjid to be overly decorative. And as we're discussing the other matter in the next hadith, Aywa.
قال المؤلف رحمه الله, chapter 42, to cooperate in building a masjid. Hadith number 281, narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, that one day he preached and then mentioned about the construction of a masjid and said, "We were carrying one abode at a time, while Ammar was carrying two. The Prophet ﷺ saw him and started removing the dust from his body and said, 'May Allah be merciful to Ammar. A rebellious group will kill him. He will be inviting them to paradise and they will be inviting him to hellfire.' Ammar said, 'I seek refuge with Allah from al-fitan, trials and afflictions.'"
Yes, that's the next hadith is mentioned regarding ta'awun fi bina al-masjid, that the general ending of the hadith or topic is ta'awun, that cooperating in building a masjid. So so others aiding and supporting others in building a masjid. So it shows regard that at times building a masjid is not just maybe a one-person task, but at times it may be a collective task. That in building of the masjid, I mentioned the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri anhu, where he mentioned regarding concerning that of building of the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. So of the Prophet ﷺ building of his masjid, that of those things that is mentioned, of those who were probably considered labana, that each person was carrying like one brick. So each person like carrying one brick to build a masjid. But you find that Ammar, that he was carrying labanatain, he was carrying two. So I should have mentioned, so from this they state that at times regarding things of bir, a person can push himself. So everyone may be carrying one stone, one brick, but something of our next person that who knows himself that he can push himself further, where in this case Ammar was carrying two bricks. So in matters of bir, that one can push oneself beyond what is the minimum or what everyone else is doing, can go beyond what everyone else is doing. So and each person according to one's ability. Each according to one's ability. So some maybe can push themselves further than those who are able, then there's no harm in this. And as for everyone kind of somewhat doing what is within the ability, then also there's no harm, but each cooperating together. Each cooperating together regarding trying to achieve the same goal, which is, in this case, building the masjid. So also it shows regarding that the Sahaba anhum, that they were directly involved in building of the masjid themselves. Not having external bodies to build the masjid, but they themselves, the community was directly involved in building of the masjid, and if at least those who of even carrying of things. So the community being involved in building the masjid. The community being involved in building of the masjid and carrying the bricks themselves. And also it shows regarding concerning that the Sahaba, that know that the masjid of the more noble of buildings, that they were eager to assist in this. So it shows regarding concerning that thing that relates to the masjid, that a person should not feel shy in helping, in doing things, fi sabilillah, for the masjid. And making themselves available if they're able. So assisting regarding concerning the maintenance of the masjid, the run of the masjid, repairs of the masjid, each according to one's ability, but one should not feel shy regarding doing something for the masjid. As the Sahaba, that they were carrying bricks and they didn't feel shame in this act. And they were eager to carry out this act. They know concern that of doing this act regarding concern. They know the reward that's attached to building a masjid, and also that the most noble of places and the most beloved of places to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the masjid. So the masjid is not like any other building. Nam is the most beloved building to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it shows the nobility of a masjid and building a masjid, and that whoever can support and assist in this, then they should do so. They mentioned regarding concern this assistance to the masjid. Eish. So
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد لا إله إلا الله أشهد لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
SubhanAllah.
Now, alhamdulillah, Wassalatu wassalamu rasulullah wa ba'd. So I mentioned regarding concern of the fawaid of this hadith regarding concern of Sahaba cooperating in building of the masjid, that they mentioned wayadu, and they mentioned concerning that regarding concerning Ammar, that he was taking more than what most were carrying. Also show from the hadith concerning that the fadl regarding concerning that the virtue of building a masjid. So show the virtue of building a masjid, and that building of the masjid, as they mentioned, that of two concerning al-hissiyya, regarding the person that the physical building itself. So building the masjid, the physical building itself, that's something which is highly recommended in Islam, and especially the masjid, it serves a purpose, and it is used for the purpose that it is built for. So the masjid, that is clear regarding the purpose of building a masjid, and that there is a need for having a masjid in this particular location, and that also it being built in this location, it will serve the purpose with the people of a place that they can worship in ease. Not what we find today regarding building of masajid is competing against each other and splitting the ranks of the Muslim. At times when I find building a masjid is, I have my own jama'ah, I want to do my own thing with them, and I want to break away from the next person. We said if that's the intention, then our intention is evil. And that's not the purpose of the masjid. So that should not be the objective behind building a masjid, because we want to split the rank of the Muslim. I want to do my own thing separate. Then that should not be the reason. So the masajid, that they have certain goals and objective, which is that they being that the masjid is a place for the people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be taught the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the primary objective. And also find that of the things also regarding the masjid being built and being used, that is used, as we said, for its rightful objective, which is the people have a place to pray, for the compulsory salah, and for Jummah, and also that the masjid, that the people are taught of Islam, the correct Islam. So a masjid being built, and it's said that you have these mega masajid that they're building now, type of thing, but as what is being taught is khurafat. Then that masjid is not per se, it's a building, but not, concerning Manawiyah, is not fulfilling its objective, where the people are not being taught Islam correctly. Rather they're being taught things of misguidance. So that's even worse. That's even worse. So the masjid, regarding concern of those two things, should be in place, that the masjid can serve, that there's a need for the masjid, but also, and that what is taught and what is delivered by the masjid also is aligned with Islam, correct with Islam, as the way of the Salaf al-Salih. So regarding concerning whatever programs or whatever being taught in the masajid, that it serve, that it is in line with Islam. So you find some of the masajid, unfortunately, that the thing that takes place in the masjid, it is Allah mustan. Like recently, that I saw a clip, and some people were commenting on the clip. So it's in a Muslim country. Won't mention the country, and there's an event in the masjid that in the time of the Prophet Islam, they say Mawlid, that they had the person who was leading that group or that event, the person is the ex-mufti of his country. He's the ex-mufti, so that's one of the highest position in a country, to be the mufti regarding a person representing Islam. He's the ex-mufti. And the other person who came and joined him in that gathering event, he eventually became the minister of religion in that country. He's now the minister of religion in his country. And they were involved in an event where they were reading Quran, but they had a band behind them, beating to tunes, singing the verses in like it was a recording store. And that was the Quran. And people were reciting Quran, and people were beating drums and flutes, reciting the Quran inside the masjid. And that's inside the masjid. You understand? So said, it have reached that level. And you see different things that this is a bit different. You see other cases of people who are said, common people said, but after people were involved, that said an ex-mufti of his country, recent ex-mufti, a minister of religion, and also he's a person who have a PhD thesis, or he's a ustad, he's a professor. And others who were present based upon how they were dressed. You can tell that there are people that also they are teachers that of their dress, you can tell that they represent a certain institution, that they are people of, you understand, teachers themselves. Because people who graduate from that university, from that institute, they were a particular type of dress. But you find many people of that dress are present, but they were singing tunes inside the masjid with the Quran. And that's inside the masjid.
Are they using
Musical instrument. And they're singing the Quran in like a musical way. And they're beating and doing their thing. So that's the level. And that's inside the masjid. And you have people inside there, you understand, a part of the gathering, but that's to that extent. I said, no, that if you said it was the common people, you can chastise them outright. And even with these, we said about these one, you have people who represent like religious representative were present, or people were said to be people of ilm, and they were doing this. But it's no concern the people involved, they are known to be of that they follow some type of Sufi tariqah. It is known, and they can somewhat just expose themselves. But it said no, that's to that extent. In the masjid, reading Quran, but musical instrument with the Quran being read at the same time, then that's unknown, that's ghareeb jiddan. But Allah mustaan. So it says the masjid, that a function, that one have to be mindful of the function of the masjid, and to go outside, that becomes a problem. So it says, inshallah ta'ala, with this we'll end the session and continue next week. Wabillahi ta'ala tawfiq.